And welcome to another episode of Five Questions with the Paulist Fathers. And today in Columbus, Ohio, at the Ohio State University, which we jokingly say is the largest Catholic university in the country. More Catholic students.
Competing with Michigan yet again.
Yeah, exactly, as always.
Something else to be competitive about. Sure.
So Father Charlie Donahue of the Paulist Fathers with us today. Welcome, Father Charlie. Let's get right into it. Question one. You are a campus minister on the Ohio State University's campus, but now no students, at least no students physically. How are you continuing to minister, and how's that been received by the students?
Okay, so yes, right? But I'm going to say about half of our student population doesn't live on campus.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of folks who live around the neighborhoods here I'm going to say half of them are still there. Right. So it kind of breaks my Paulist heart in a sense, because I know that the people that I serve are half of them are in a 2-mile radius of me, and I have not seen them since late February. So that, and we can, the two-dimensional stuff is fine. What we're doing right now is nice. Sure. I've done some Zoom marriage prep, and I have talked to some folks. I've had to explain to some folks why things like the sacrament of reconciliation can't happen in this medium right now. And but we're trying to figure out ways to plan for the fall, hoping that there is a resident fall semester. I'm not saying there's not going to be. We're figuring this out day to day. So being available is an important part of it. So a number of folks, have cell phones. A number of folks are also just checking in with some social media posts and things like that. But we're trying to keep a sense of real cooperation with the larger diocese, with the university. I mean, one of the challenges, I think, and I don't know if it's arrogant to say for the Paulists especially, but we're used to finding creative ways to get outreach done, right? And this flummoxes that, in a sense, where the things that I would want to do as a creative Paulist priest is, or could potentially harm someone else. So, how do we then do that? Like the big university hospital system is wonderful, and we're chaplains on call each night now. And we are prepared in a sense for a COVID patient, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of other folks there who are in for other things, who are immunocompromised. Right. And so even if I go in with gloves and gown and face mask and the 95, I could potentially harm that person.
Right.
And that creates this other dynamic where, shock against shock, the power of prayer works, in a sense, and I believe in prayer. Absolutely. I'm all over it. I dedicated my life to it, but I also grew up with romper room, where I want to be a doobie. I want to be a doobie. I want to be somebody who does these things. So figuring that out has been hard. And ironically, I've mentioned this to some other people here. I've actually been busier since the shutdown.
Oh, wow.
In a sense. And maybe it's just that it's more exhausting. No offense, but
energy.
Zoom is weird, right? It's like you're on an airplane, right? In a sense, and figuring that out, So, and being ready, willing, and able when there's new information from the bishop or the governor to act upon it fairly quickly.
Good. Question two. You had a really moving homily on Divine Mercy Sunday. Could you give us your take on doubting Thomas in a nutshell? And how does that whole story reflect this time of isolation?
Okay. So thank you for that. But I guess to take it away from Thomas a little bit, I think I'm more interested in the calendar, right? So Thomas is not there,
right?
Which has its own implications about how brave he was, in a sense, right? But so Thomas is not there, comes back. They tell him what happened. He doesn't believe them, and kind of in a rude way, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah.
And then suddenly the scriptures say a week later. So we've got this week where Thomas doesn't believe, and the scriptures do not tell us that they threatened to throw him out, or they wouldn't sit at his dinner table, or they didn't give him any food. There was no shunning of this that we know of, right? So what I take from that is the faith development of people that we work with. I mean, Jesus, on Jesus' own terms, finds Thomas, honestly, back where Thomas was going to be, in a sense. And the other guys stayed out of the way, and so I'm all about evangelization, right? But Christ is the one doing the heavy lifting. Yeah. And so we can do accompaniment and encounter, but the accompaniment is in the journey to Christ, and the encounter is getting out of the way of the encounter with Christ. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and I think that in this time of isolation, but also let's sort of be honest here. It's a time of isolation, but it's also a time of overly closeness for others, right? So we find ourselves landlocked with folks,
right? And
maybe we love them and they're our family,
sure,
but we've been landlocked with them for 8 weeks, and on. And so, who didn't empty the dishwasher? The crumbs in the toaster are burning, right? It's all these different things that can drive us crazy, right? In a weird, stupid sense. But we're in this together, even though we're isolated. So.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thanks.
So question 3, along the same lines, what should preachers be preaching about during this time? Do you have to mention the coronavirus in every single homily, or do you go the exact opposite way and just do standard operating procedure?
I would say a little bit of both, right? I think that the preaching duty is to try to get into the heads of our folks, in a sense. And so I guess rather than preaching on COVID particularly, or bringing that in, the isolation, the overly closeness, I think we want to try to facilitate a spiritual journey in somebody's head and heart using what we have in front of us in liturgy. And some days that's going to take COVID stuff in.
Right.
And some days it's not. And I want to find a better word than the new normal, which people throw around.
Right.
But I think what people have looked for in homilies has not changed. And in the end, if the preacher can, in 8 to 10 minutes or less, bring a sense of even though we're all in different places, we are all walking together. I think of all the homilies we've done, I think the thing that I'm most excited about, and it's not technically a homily, but it's going to make a homily in the fall, I hope, is we started to make a list of people that we knew from the parish, from the Newman Center membership, who could really use a call, right, just sort of check in, right? So within 3 days, we had a list of 600 people.
Wow.
You know,
600, you said?
and I'm sure we're missing somebody. I'm sure we're missing people there. People might watch this and say, "Hey, I didn't get a call," right? But we kind of created a bit of a phone tree among some volunteers and some active folk that are in leadership positions with different groups, and then also the staff. And we literally all started calling each other. You know, and we found some defunct phone numbers on the database too, right? but we were able to make kind of a gentle contact with people, both to check in on how they're doing and that we're praying for them and what can we pray for them for, but also asking them very practical questions like, is there something you need? And one of the dangers I think that we can make, or one of the sand traps in all of this, is everybody doesn't have access to this, like what we're doing right now.
Right.
You know, and so in isolation, that gets worse. Like a lot of Newman centers, like a lot of university parishes, I'm going to say 40% of the people that we used to see every week, if not even more often, are non-students, people from Columbus area who love the Paulists. Right. And so that keeping that in balance and keeping in contact with that, and then also following through. If somebody says they really need help with something, we can try to make that happen. So in a sense, that is part of liturgy now.
The work of the people.
Yeah, like one of the jokes the other day was, you know, when you're on an online mass, you know, during the sign of peace, you press Control P over and over again. You know, but in the end, like the sign of peace for us outside of liturgy are these phone calls. You know, and it's not something that happens once and done. If, you know, the volunteers, and we have this gaggle of folk that we can call anytime now, and they can call us.
Yeah.
So that becomes something to, I want to boast only in the cross of Christ, but I'm kind of proud of the fact that we've done that, and God willing, this ends soon in a sense, but this might be part of who we are now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a new kind of ministry of presence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But the telephone, you know, like all things, this is, you know, it is 1918 in a sense.
That's right. Yeah. Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 4. What's on your isolation Netflix queue?
Okay.
Do you binge watch or do you just pick and choose?
I grew up on Long Island.
Right.
And I was a Boy Scout, you know, and all that stuff. The story of Nathan Hale, if you're from grammar school stuff. Mm-hmm. So Nathan Hale is this fairly young guy who's spying for Washington, gets caught, arrested, and is going to be hung. And he has the famous line of, "My regret is that I only have one life to give for my country." Right. That happened in Oyster Bay, up north from where I grew up. I've always loved that story. And there's a television program produced by AMC a few years ago called Turn.
Okay.
Washington,
yes.
Washington Spies, right? So it's one of those shows that you can't pick up. Like if you don't see it from the start, you're going to be lost.
Right.
So I've wanted to watch that, and so I've been kind of doing the 3 episodes a day thing for a little while. And it's really interesting. And it's sad that all this death and mayhem happened, right? But America's kind of awesome, you know, in a sense. And so I'm glad this all happened. But the individual stories of the different people and inspire me in the same way. I mean, Nathan Hale's quote was actually kind of part of my discernment for priesthood around, you know, I'm living in New York, I have my job, I'm doing my stuff, but like to it's hackneyed because it was literally a soap opera, but I only have one life to live,
Right.
and how do I want to spend that life? And I think I picked well. it's
Indeed.
it's it you know it's
We all
this is
agree.
this is how I want to put my life. And the other piece to tie this in with today is, we have hindsight, right? And so we can watch these different characters in the American Revolution and say, oh no, don't do that because of this, but they don't have a map really of what the future will be.
Yeah, right.
And they continue to do what they discern to be the next right thing. And whether they trust God or not is up to them. But if they trust their friendships and the process, things will work for the good. So I recommend it.
Awesome. So it's Turn, right?
Turn, Turn.
Got it. All right. Question 5 and the last one for today. How do you think this pandemic will change the church? Will more people adopt a faith or adapt a faith, as you said on Divine Mercy Sunday, too?
I'm going to go with both. I don't. So one of the Paulist Fathers' taglines years ago was "Missionaries to Main Street," right? And it's compelling, and it is. It's a perfect snapshot for who we were and who we hoped to be, right? But Francis early on, even choosing Francis as his name, spoke about a church that is poor for the poor. We're living in a world where somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 million people have applied for unemployment insurance in the last month. That's just who's applied, so who knows what else is out there. There's a way that I think, and I realize I'm saying this with my backdrop as a fairly elaborate, beautiful piece of art, right? But I think that the big challenge for the church is to, in a sense, retool itself to be a church for the poor. And I think the Paulists can do that well if we make some choices around it. And I think we try very hard now, because I guess I'm not just talking about service for the poor. I'm talking about actually like being that. And I think that might come, and that's going to come at a cost. But the cynic in me, honestly, I think we have a lot of nice ideas about what the church will look like 6 months to a year from now, and I think it's going to look a lot like the church right now, at figuring out what the next right thing is. On an individual level, on a parish level, on a diocese level, on a nation level, on a universal church level. But who knows?
Right. That seems to be the general operating procedure for all of us, is who knows? Who knows what's going to be on the other side of this? And so all the more important things for us to do at this time is to pray, in the uncertainty. And
pray and outreach. Prayer and outreach. Prayer and outreach. Prayer and outreach.
Can't say it enough, right?
Yeah.
So, Father Charlie, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Our best to everybody at the Newman Center at the Ohio State University.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you around soon. And so
thanks a lot, sir.
There's been another episode of 5 Questions with the Paulist Fathers. I'm Mike Hayes, and we'll see you another time.